Hey guys, in this video I'll give the basics about the Swift programming language, which is used to make iOS apps. I'll start off with variables, and then I'll go on to functions, structure of a Swift file, and then members, namespaces, modules, instances, and a little bit of about design too. Um, so let's get started. In Swift, there are two ways of declaring a variable. One is using the um, let keyword, and the other is var. So you can let is used to uh, declare a variable whose value should not be changed in the program, and if that value is changed, the compiler will give an error. So, for example, if let's just talk about let first. If let is if x is the variable and x is equal to 10, we can print x, and we can see that here we get x. But if we try to make x is equal to 20, the compiler is gonna give an error now. Let's see, cannot assign value to x is a let constant. So if we change it to var, this will not create any error. We can easily print out the value of x, which should be 20. Let's see, yeah. So this is um, pretty much about variables. So you don't have to specify the data type of the variable or anything of that sort, like string, char, integer, like in C++. We have to do it, but it's like Python. Even in Python, you can just assign the value as x is equal to 10 or x is equal to hello or whatever, and it's gonna automatically get to know what the data type is of the content. So okay, let's move on to functions. So functions in Swift are declared um, using the keyword like the func, and then you can just write your function name, which can be anything. For example, uh, let's make it go for let's make it first program, maybe first function, or yeah, it really doesn't matter. And you gotta have the parentheses after that, then curly braces, and this will be a function body. You can write print. Let's do the old school, the first thing that needs to be printed out, which is hello world. um yeah, and if you call this function um, from your file, it will print hello world. So like first function, and you can see here hello world. And then there are a couple of other things that also can be done with this. Just a second. Yes. So one last thing I'd like to talk about in function is that in Swift, functions can be nested. For example, the first function that we have written here uh, can actually belong in another function. For example, let's make function second function, and inside this function, our first function will lie. So now, if we call the second function, inside the second function, we have the definition of a first function as well as the first function is being called. So when we will call the second function from the outside, it will display hello world. So um, see, so this is in when we are making an iOS app, we'll have different files. For example, main.swift file where as soon as the simulator runs, some of the functions are this file is called, and the top level things of this file are executed. And so most of our coding that we'll be writing will be inside a function, in fact, and we can write our own functions um, and like call them and make new variables and so on and so forth. So basically, in Swift, functions can be nested, which is kind of different from other programming languages like Python or C++. But yeah, so next we're gonna talk about object members. So in Swift, we have um, object members have properties and their methods. And properties are basically the variables that are declared in a class, and methods are the functions that are declared in the class. So for example, let's delete all this and let's write a class. Um, let's let's name it first program, and the syntax of declaring a class is we use the class keyword first and then the name of the class, and in this will be the class body. So we can write any properties of this class. For example, and like I said before, properties are variables that are declared in a class. So we can write var name, which is equal to Ishan, which is my name, and we can also have methods of this class. So let's declare a method. Say function print name. Sorry, print name, and then parentheses and curly braces, and we'll write print name. Sorry, nope. We'll write print, and then we'll write the name of the variable, which should be name. So now this is a completely this is our class now, and we can make objects of this class, and those objects will have the first program as their object types. So let's declare an object of this class. Let's see, a first program. Let's name the variable x, and then we can call like we can print the name of the we can print the variable name by using the print command and writing x dot name. So this will print this will say Ishan. Wait, there's something wrong in this. So as you can see, this writing this first program x is not the right way of declaring an object in Swift. This is the C++ way. To declare an object in Swift, we need to first use uh, the keyword let, or we can use var, it doesn't matter, but since it will be an object of the first program, we would want to use a let, because we are not going to change that variable in the future. So now this, when we do print x dot name, we'll get our name, get my name printed out in the console, as well as if I do x dot print name, if I call this function, um, my this function will be called, and uh, so why we are getting my name and as well as the parentheses printed out, because we are using a print statement and calling a function inside that print statement, which also has a print statement. So what we need to do here is just call x.print name, which will not create that problem. So just my name's showing up here now, which is great. And so this was all about object members and object types. Let's move on to namespaces. So namespaces are basically a named region of a program. So what this means is, let's understand this by an example. Let's delete all of this first. So if we have a class called M1, and inside that class we have another class called class called M2. No superclass or anything, and so in this case, this way of declaring M1 makes this M2 class nested type. So it basically hides M2 inside M1. So M1 is a namespace here. This is a perfect example of what namespaces are. So one class is hiding the content of another class. So in this case, it's M1. So code inside M1 can have access to M2 directly, but code outside M1 cannot access the stuff of M2. This will come later, but it's a very good way of hiding data and specifying protection to your content so that nobody can modify it, or any user or any other cannot modify it. For example, if any of you guys are familiar with C++, there we have private, protected, and public. Three options to hide our content, our variables and methods. In this we also have it, but we'll discuss that later in this video. So this namespace does not itself provide privacy or secrecy, but it's a convenience. When you'll write more programs in Swift, you'll see how this is used and how beneficial this is. So I'll talk about it more in the later part of this video. So now let's talk about self and how this is and what this is in Swift. So a self is an instance of an object, basically. So an instance needs a way of sending a message to itself, which is made possible by this keyword self. This word can be used wherever an instance of the appropriate type is expected. For example, let's consider a class that we had written before. So that class was class, or we can modify. Let's stick with the first class. Okay, the first class we wrote. So we wrote the first program which had a variable name Sean, and it had a function to print the name. So now in this case we can, instead of writing name, we can write self.name, which would refer to the name variable that is in this class. Uh, so basically, if I want to write an instant to print my name, which is merely my implementation will consist of simply calling own name, my own name method. So if I have like another function, if I make like another function, um, let's name it, say, your name. So in this we can just call the function, the above function that we have written, which is print name, and we can do self.print name, which will call this function, and we'll see the name Ishan printed. So the term self is an in this example is appearing only in instance methods. So so it turns out basically that every use of the word self uh, uh, I have used here is basically optional. If we just omit it all, it will still work. But uh, if you omit the self keyword, the compiler supplies self as the message as itself. Like you don't see it; it happens in the behind the scenes work. But whenever I'm writing code, I never do that. Uh, as a matter of style, I like to be explicit in the use of self, and it just makes it more readable. So, so let's move on to the next topic. So now we'll talk about privacy in Swift. So if we want to make a variable private, uh, we just need to use the keyword private before uh, declaring any variable, for example, or a function for that matter. Um, for example, we have declared our name, my name here in the variable name. So if I want it, if I want its this name not to be changed when it's inherited by some other class, so I can write the private method. I can write the private keyword, which will make this variable private. So in this, all of these two functions are the public property, but my name is private property. It can only be seen by other types of object. Uh, uh, Only a first instance of a first program or object declared with the data type first program can uh, can have access to this variable, but uh, if there's another class and there's an instance of that class that uh, with there's and that class has a reference to this first program, then an instance of that class cannot have access to this variable. So I'll explain this using an example now. So basically, that long explanation meant that if I have an instance known as X of first program, and I want to uh, change the name to Mark, and let's print it out too. Now this I don't have the private keyword here, so this will allow me to change it, but as soon as I put private here, I cannot change the keyword and it will give me an error. You can see Playground execution failed. Uh, Name is inaccessible due to private protection level. So this is basically the user protection here. But right now this is just a basic Swift introduction, so I will not go in further detail into it. And so let's move on to the next topic. So now I will get into in depth into the other topics. So you can see that in the other video, part 2. So thank you guys for tuning up, and check out my next video that will have more details about functions.